All right, A pushers. This is Mr. Imatsu. This is our first kind of screencast regarding the marking of a DBQ. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the basic marks of a DBQ. This is not going to help you understand really how to write the essay, but kind of really how to analyze the DBQ. So first of all, the document-based question, or DBQ, has a series of documents that you're going to have to use to answer a essay question. Now, this has changed, and up here, as you guys can see, the one that we're going to practice on here is going to be the 2010. It's a fairly recently one, but unfortunately, the test that got redesigned was actually redesigned in the year 2015. So we've had the 2015, 2016, and 2017 tests. Maybe 2014 actually started in APUS, since I taught APUS before this. But nonetheless, this is not a what we call new style DBQ. It's kind of an old style DBQ. But the skills that we need that I'm going to show you guys are basically the same. So we're going to go through those skills, and that's what we need. You're going to be tested on inside this class, how we go through the skills of a document-based question. So the first thing that we're going to do is you don't really need to worry about the directions. Here's a little hand, so let me get that out of the way. So the directions that you see here, we don't really need to worry about that. You're going to know these directions, and in fact, in the DBQ, it's actually going to show you exactly the rubric on the first page. We're going to move on, and we're actually going to go into the actual question itself. So a couple of things that I would like you guys to do for a couple of marks for the question, just to give you a heads up. We always zigzag our what we call our academic vocabulary. These are also words like describe, compare and contrast. We would call these almost historical thinking skills inside of our class. We're going to circle key terms. We're going to underline what to write about. And lastly, we're going to box the time period. Okay. So when I look at this, in what ways? So the what ways is kind of the academic vocab. The big idea is the ideas and values that were held by Puritans, and how did they kind of influence. So that's a kind of underline here, the political, economic, and social development of the New England colonies from 1630. What do I need to understand? I really need to figure out how the ideas and values held by Puritans influence the political, economic, and social development of the New England colonies. So really, it's all of that. Now down here, there should be a space, and this kind of goes immediately into our first document. So let's kind of ignore that this document's here. And down here on this bottom space, we're going to do what's called a do, what, predict. Now you probably know what a do, what chart is. But a do, what, predict, and you probably can't even see my face in that corner, so I apologize for that. I'll do my best to kind of look back and forth. But a do, what, predict is really going to help us understand. Like I said, you know what the do, what chart is, but you probably don't know this predict chart. The predict really gives us an idea about what we may see in the documents. And although our predictions may not be true, this really gives us a lens as a reader when we read, and gives us an idea of what to look for. And I would say that students that know what to look for, it makes the reading a little bit easier. If you don't even know what you're reading for, it doesn't make any sense. So I'll go and go through this do, what, predict, and it's going to kind of explain a little bit of what we are going to try to find over the next series of documents. So do, we need to figure out in what. And over here, it's going to be ways. And it's a kind of focus on two different things. What were the, ideas / values? So we have to talk about what those. And secondly, how did these influence three ideas? One, the political development. Two, the economic development. And three, the social development. So you can see the do and the what actually comes up here from our prompt and those marks. So if you have a basic understanding of history, hopefully you can make some predictions based off of what's going on. So in what ways? Well, let's see. Where were some of the ideas and values held by Puritans? Coming either from your knowledge from 8th grade, coming from knowledge from AP European history, or your knowledge of hopefully a little bit of American history, or your knowledge of what we've been studying in class. Hopefully you can make some kind of ideas or make some guesses about Puritans. So we know that Puritans are very religious. So one thing that I'm going to put in here is definitely there's going to be religion is important. I know that these guys are Protestant, so I'm up here. I'm also going to put the word Protestant up here. That's one of their values that they're going to do. That's just a little bit different than Catholic. Protestants had a thing called a work ethic. They believed that if you worked hard, that you would be rewarded by God with more money. And it's something like kind of at certain levels, we kind of believe here. We believe in the United States of America, hey, by your hard work, you should be able to have a better standard of living or a better way of life. And I think the Protestants had that with a little bit more of a religious twist. Let's see, the role of women. I know women were probably had a domestic role. And because they had a domestic role, they probably were at the home more often. And I'm going to put traditional lives. So we're just taking a couple of guesses here. We'll do men too then. Men, probably traditional as well. Probably workers one way. Okay. So there's a couple ideas that might happen. Hey, when we read, we might see the values or ideas of Protestantism or Puritanism and religion and women's roles and men's roles, maybe the way children are raised. Again, we could be doing this forever, but we're not going to take hours to do this. We don't have time to do this on the test. We're just going to take a few minutes to take a couple guesses on what's going on. Hey, politically, I know that a lot of Protestants were persecuted in Europe for being not Catholic. And I know that a lot of Puritans actually came over because they were either not the right type of Catholic there in England. So over on political, I'm going to go ahead and take a guess that some ways that they influenced was religious toleration. Economic, it looks like we kind of have this idea of like capitalism and like kind of like a focus on self. That's a kind of guess I have them. Socially, we kind of made some guesses up there. So again, religion's going to be probably a big influence. They might promote some toleration because of that, like I said earlier in the political part. In addition, they might have interesting gender roles, which we took a guess on. And you can see how these two are kind of combining with them. All right, cool. So then up here, we're going to start getting into the hard work that we need to do for the document-based question. So on the left-hand side, what we're going to do is we're going to summary. On the left-hand side, so I'm going to put it here, we're going to summarize. The right-hand side is not like we used to call it a category. You don't really have a category, but really this is how it answers the prompt. And then up here, we're not ready for this. Some are ready in our class, some are not. But up here, this is where you're going to find some what we call sourcing information. You're going to find information that's going to make us feel if the person's reliable, unreliable, telling the truth, not telling the truth. Or maybe they're telling the truth, but there's a certain way they're telling the truth to get a certain thing, whatever that thing is. So it's kind of talking about their motivations. Another word I've heard is their bias. These are all words to help explain. Okay. So one thing I know about John Winthrop, just to give you a heads up, I believe he is a minister. So we know he's a religious individual. It looks like this is writing some kind of book. In a book, you usually use it for sale. And later, we're going to talk about how those type of ideas could influence what John Winthrop said. That's not for this lesson today. Today, we're just understanding how to mark a document, not really how to mark and analyze a document. It's not necessarily how to write the sourcing, how to write the summary, or how to write the answers. All right. So interesting. I don't know if that's spelled correctly, but you're starting to get this 1630 word English. That's why this DBQ is a little bit difficult because they use language that we don't really relate to. So we must be knit together in this work as one man. We must entertain each other in brotherly affection. We must willing to abridge ourselves for our superfluities, for the supply of others' necessities. We must uphold familiar commerce. Okay. I'm starting to get like an information that they are trying to create something called like a brotherhood, like some kind of togetherness, some kind of equality. All right. I mean, here it says together in all meekness, gentleness, patience, and liberality. We must delight in each other, make each other's conditions our own, rejoice together, mourn together, labor and suffer together. Wow. Always having, I don't know what that means, but again, hopefully you guess, before our eyes, always having something before our eyes, our commission community as a work, as members of the same body. The eyes of all people. I wonder what people he's talking about. You know, as a reader, I'm asking these questions. That's what good readers do. So something you guys can develop. All people are upon us. So that if we shall deal falsely with our God, this work we have undertaken, and so cause him to withdraw his present help from us, we shall be made a story and by word through the world. All right. So he's kind of saying that like, we need to work together because guess what? Everybody's looking at us to be successful. So that's what I'm going to say over here. So we met together, blah, 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 all that stuff. So first thing he says, it says something right here. It ends with these ellipses. And basically this is that Puritans must work together. He lastly says this, and this is the reason why we make together is because he says all people. I mean, it's almost acts like the entire world. So I'm going to put that. The world is watching their actions. I mean, that's what he says at the end. Hey, heads up. This whole story is going to be told to everybody, whether God's here or not, whether we do it the right way or we don't do it the right way. Okay? So how does this answer the question? Remember, let's go back to this. What were the ideas and values? Well, the ideas and values, it literally looks like a Puritan work ethic. And how did that change it? Well, it looks like politically, they kind of wanted to work together. So you kind of have this idea of maybe of a democracy. Okay. I don't know about social, but economic, it's almost like a sense of communism and working together. Now, later on, I might have to change these ideas to fit an idea that I see in another document. And as we go further with this, you're going to understand what I mean by that. If you don't understand what I mean by that, just try to do your best to answer the question using ideas from the document. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go on to the next one. The next one is an interesting one because I believe it's a map. And maps tend to scare students a little bit. And so especially how you can use this to figure out what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and dissect this a little bit with you guys. So this is a town map. It's in Colonial, New England. I don't have it. These are individually owned farms. Interesting. So there's like a lot of individualism happening around here. There is some common lands. There is a town hall, there is a church, there is a minister's house. Notice the minister's house has a different name than everybody else. So again, I'm trying to see this thing of religion. You'll notice that there are different pastures for different areas and different resources. So it looks like there's some kind of like economic competition happening up here, but it looks like these individuals, if they're using a map, have identified the resources and which resources they're going to exploit to help them be a successful group. So over here, a summary. Again, remember, summaries are over here. On this one for a map, it's really hard to talk about any type of sourcing information. If this was written by the U.S. government, we might be a little bit concerned, let's say, especially if the U.S. government employees are not fully trained. But on this document, it's really hard to do sourcing because there's really not much information. It's just a map. We don't know who made the map. We don't know when it was made. We don't know who profited off the map. So it's real difficult on those things. So summary is this. Hey, this is a map that shows homes, common land, and economic resources. Cool. So over here, how's it saying? Well, what values does this show? Well, first of all, it does show the values of religion. Look at the center. It shows the value of education. So if I were to talk about values over here, hey, the values that are being seen are religion and education. Now, how did that influence things politically, economically, and socially? I don't know. Economically, I kind of see some equality here. It looks like I'm going to put over here equal. That because their education and religion, they started treating each other as equals. It looks like for the most part, yeah, we got two homes on one land here. But the most part, everybody's kind of equal. And even the size of the farms are largely equal. And then we also have a common land that allows some more equality there. I don't know if I can do anything politically. And if you could find something politically, that's interesting. Socially, again, I'm coming to the point of a kind of like a community of equals where people are really trying to help one another out be successful within this little map of colonial New England. Okay, so there's that. Let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and skim through this and look at a couple of items to kind of see what we got. Because if we have like a poem or something, I'd like to do a poem. All right. So we'll do, I don't know, let's go ahead and talk about William Bradford here. So we got William Bradford. He looks like he and his friends, so this doesn't look like an indigenous name, so I'm assuming him and his friend attacked this village, probably indigenous people. Okay. Cool. It was a fearful sight to see them thus frying in the fire. Wow. And then streams of blood. Wow. Quenching the same. The horrible was the stink and the scent thereof, but the victory, after they attacked these indigenous people, seemed a sweet sacrifice. Okay, so far I'm hearing this was not fun, but it was necessary. And they gave praise. I wonder who they are. Probably the people that attacked him, the colonists. Yep. The colonists gave praise thereof to God, who had wrought so wonderfully for them, thus to enclose their enemies in their hands, and give them so speedy a victory over the so proud, insulting, and blasphemous an enemy. So their enemy was proud, it was insulting, yet using God, they were able to get a quick victory that wasn't really, really fun, but they had to. Okay? So summary over here. Again, I'm going to go ahead and put over here. Let's see here. Colonists, attack, indigenous, and believe it was a help from God. So over here on our on our answers over here. So what value does this show? I don't know. I mean, this really shows a value, in my opinion, of religion. So they really think that they're religion and warfare, right? Religion and violence, maybe. That they believe it to be violent when going against somebody of a different religion. So that's what I think of the values. How did this influence them politically? Well, politically, right? They would attack people of different religion. Cool. So that's kind of your goal in this class, for today and for this assignment. We're not going into the sourcing. We're not getting really deep into it. But what we're trying to understand is how we mark and how we underline. Here's another thing is that I said the word underline. I didn't even underline anything. So just as a heads up, I heard from the AP teachers and the AP readers that you shouldn't really use a long quote. It really should be about 3 to 5 words, So occasionally you might find a phrase that's less than 5 words that really kind of nails it. Like for here, this one, praise thereof God. I'm going to underline that. They're giving a lot of praise to this religious figure, to God for their victories. And that's kind of interesting considering the very beginning of it. He's talking about how horrible this experience was of them, basically burning the indigenous people, blood going everywhere, but then he praises God. That's kind of interesting. Going back to our last document, I don't know if I would ever do anything in the first half because it's all different examples of them being together. But when we get here at the end, all people, the eyes of all people are upon us. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting phrase to me. That's one that really popped up. That really comes to my summary. The world is watching their actions. So as you guys go through this, also students, I think they're really, really experienced. I challenge you to, first of all, be a little bit more focused with your circles. Some kids tend to circle everything. It's all over the place. And also be really, really focused on your underline. Can you identify a phrase, 3 to 5 words, less than 3 to 5 words, or around 3 to 5 words that you can underline that basically could summarize the entire document? That's a challenge I have for you guys to kind of step it up in our level. All right, guys. So that's your kind of first step towards the DBQ. Obviously, it's a very, very small step, but a very, very important step. And this is how we begin analyzing our documents. We'll talk a lot about later about analyzing these even deeper, making our categories even stronger, and then eventually putting this all into actually an essay that kind of hits the historical thinking skills that you need to know to be successful in this class. All right, till the next time, keep working hard. Reading and writing are probably the most important parts of this exam. So hopefully that little screencast helped you out, and refer to it if you need to. All right, take care.